Hello, everybody, and welcome to Decoding the WSL, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. Coming up this weekend is game week 19 in the WSL, only 4 matches left, and I've got 3 guests on with me to talk through it all. I'm your host, Sam Biccarino.
I'm Izzy Duddy.
I'm Jacob Bernstein.
I'm Tom Maher.
I was thinking as I was starting to go into it, I was like, I feel like I've forgotten something, and then, yeah, there we go. Right, let's pretend that hasn't happened. Pretend everything went smoothly. And then we'll start the actual pod. Yes, welcome, listener. It is Monday the 14th of April for us as we record. May well be Tuesday or later on in the week by the time you're listening. But welcome to Decoding the WSL. It's been a couple of weeks since we were last with you. But we've got a bumper episode with 3 guests for the first time on the pod. You heard there first, Izzy Duddy coming back. Izzy, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm ready to redeem myself from Know Your Stat. So
yeah, there's been a little bit of, well, I was going to say fighting talk. I think everyone was actually doing themselves down before we started recording. But we've got someone on that's hoping to be the first person to win 2 out of 2, and it's Tom Maher.
Gosh, it's all I've been thinking about, Sam, since last time I was on. Sleepless nights.
You mentioned it on the halfway line pod as well, didn't you?
I know. I mean, I'm playing cool right now, but I actually am desperate to win another one.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it at the end. I promise that there will be some actual WSL chat in the middle of this pod. I promise, listener. And our third guest today, we've got Jacob Bernstein back as well. Jacob, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. As you said, I lost my first game with Know Your Stat, so I'm hoping for a win this time.
Well, we'll see what comes when we get to the end of the pod. We obviously, like I said, we do have a little bit of actual football talk to go through first. We probably should do that as it's decoding the WSL. I do want to start, however, by looking at what's happened since the WSL was last in action. Obviously, England have played twice. The Lionesses won 5-0 at home against Belgium, and then in the away fixture lost 3-2, although Michelle Aubameyang scoring a absolute screamer. I think the sort of thing that, well, not just her, but anyone dreams of, scoring for your country on your debut, a lovely volley like that within a minute. Fantastic scenes. There was also FA Cup matches this weekend in the semi-final. Chelsea beating Liverpool 2-1. Aggie Beever-Jones's header winning the game for Chelsea. And then United winning away at City 2-0. And it's setting up an FA Cup final that we've seen before, I guess. The third final in the row for United, which is really big for them considering a lot of the talk that's been going on around the club in the last few years and how they're probably not quite at the level they wish they were. But this is really exciting. Tom, how are you feeling about this FA Cup final? Do you think it's going to sort of live up to a close game, or do you think it's going to be a bit one-way Chelsea still?
I think it'll be close. When they've only played once this season. I think it was only 1-0. Chelsea had the best of it, really. But at Wembley as well, and there's a bit of a different dynamic this year because, United are defending champions of the FA Cup. They won their first ever trophy last year. So that's Chelsea could still be on for the quadruple at that stage as well. I think it might be a week before the Champions League final if they get there. So who knows how much that could have an effect on how the game plays out. Or it could be that they've gone out of the Champions League and that they want to make sure they secure this domestic treble. So there's so much to look forward to. Sonia Bonpastor's first game at Wembley. I was trying to ask her about it this week, but she was having none of it. She was, we've got Liverpool to play first, but she did play there a couple of times at the 2012 Olympics, I think. So, but first time as a manager at Wembley, so it'll be really interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, I'm really forward to it. I think some United fans will probably be actually supporting Chelsea in the Champions League now, just in the hope that they do get to the final, maybe might rest some players. Because weirdly, as Chelsea as a club, obviously they've won the WSL before, they've won the FA Cup before, they've obviously won the League Cup before, including this season, and now it's the Champions League is the main one, and the FA Cup is almost, even though it's such a massive tournament, it's almost just a little side project that would be great if it happens, but not the main thing. But anyway, let's get on to, well, allegedly the main reason we're actually here, which is to talk about the WSL. So the first match we're going to touch on is the match that is coming up tomorrow. It is Arsenal against Leicester. This one's been rearranged due to the Arsenal-Lyon game that's happening on Saturday, which I'm going to. I'm really looking forward to that. This game is one that is very much in Arsenal's favour. This fixture last season was a 3-0 Arsenal win, Beth Mead getting 2 and Alessia Russo getting the other. These two teams have played each other 8 times before, and all 8 of them have been Arsenal wins. At home, Arsenal have won all 3 times they've met and haven't conceded at all against Leicester. So it's looking like, well, the stats would say it's going to be an Arsenal win. Leicester obviously have had a really good home record this year, not so good away from home. They're one of the only teams not to win away so far in the WSL this season, and they have lost their last 7 away games. Do we think this is going to be a straightforward Arsenal win, or do we think Leicester might be able to get something out of it? I'm going to go to Jacob first as the only sort of neutral in the room.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's quite hard to look past an Arsenal win in this one. To be fair, Arsenal have obviously been on really good form in the WSL. They've won their last 6 WSL matches. They're obviously coming off the back of a big quarterfinal Champions League win, having beaten Real Madrid. The only caveat I would say is obviously, as you said, they've got their Champions League semi-final on the weekend, so there's a potential that they may rest some players for that. However, Leicester have picked up some good results recently. They've won 2 and drawn 1 of their last 5. However, all of those results were at home, and their away form is really poor. They've lost their last 7 away WSL matches, only picking up 2 WSL away points all season. I think even if Arsenal do rest some players, I think they'll have too much quality for Leicester, purely because Arsenal have such a strong attack and also such a strong defence. They've scored 3+ goals in all of their last 6 WSL matches, and they've only conceded 7 goals in their last 6 WSL matches. So they've conceded an average of 1 goal per game. But if you actually think about it, 3 of those goals were against West Ham and 3 of those goals were against City. So it means that their defence has been really strong. So I see quite a convincing Arsenal win, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree that, not just because I'm an Arsenal fan, I promise, but I do agree that just all the numbers of what's happened so far and in recent matches, like you say, in the form does go in Arsenal's favour. Even with, it sounds like Alessia Russo might not be available for this game. She obviously came out of the Lionesses squad after the first game, picking up an injury. She is the player with the joint most goal involvements in the WSL this season with 13, but Arsenal have such a sort of quite a good depth in forward positions. Obviously, they've got Stina ready and waiting to get into that position. Izzy, is there, well, in fact, from a fantasy standpoint, actually, has there been much movement from sort of Rousseau and things like that?
So Russo's been dropped quite a lot. People have obviously been paying attention after the break. So she has been dropped out of, she was the second most dropped out this week. So, and people are putting in the likes of Caldente and Beth Mead, and I think that's probably quite a smart call. I think this could be a good time for, well, I'm sure Beth Mead will find the back of the net, to be honest. I mean, she's on really good form recently, and with Chloe Kelly out and Russo's obviously going to be rested, I think if you want to put a fantasy bet on it, I would say put a bet on Beth Mead. And also, I think Stina's a really good shout. I mean, she obviously doesn't have a huge ownership in fantasy just because she doesn't really get the minutes at the moment, but provided she stays on side, there could be some big differentials in there. So it will be interesting because, you know, in terms of fantasy, Russo's just guaranteed every week. So with her out, the points could be a lot more spread out.
Yeah, I looked earlier today actually thinking that I needed to take Rousseau out and who was I going to put in. Realised I don't actually have Rousseau, so I took her out for Caldente a few weeks ago, so that's good. But I do have Mina, so I do need to make some sort of change regardless. How about you, Tom? Because you are obviously an Arsenal fan. How are you thinking this game's going to go?
Yeah, I have to agree with all of you on this one. I think I'd be surprised if it was anything less than an Arsenal victory. I feel like Arsenal just such a confidence boosting run. It's a really big week for them. Obviously, on Saturday, they'll be welcoming Lyon to the Emirates, which is a huge game in their season. I think Russo and Kelly, have been a big part, of course, of this recent confidence boosting goal scoring run. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you'd have to say it's going to be forward, across that front line forward, Blackstenius and Mead, you'd assume. So it'd be interesting to see how that works. I think Renee's Sleger's confirmed today that both of them would likely not be fit, Russo and Kelly, and then that Daphne van Domslaar was progressing well, but the injury could still be as long as 6 weeks. She also said that, good news for Arsenal fans, that Lotte Wubben-Moy is back training with the team, but the injury that Kadina picked up is still being managed. From a Leicester perspective as well, I think that they were hoping that Ruby Mace might be fit before the end of the season, but she's still out for this one. I was looking up on like the kind of history of these two, and I think apparently the aggregate score is 24-2 in all competitions in Arsenal's favour, which is pretty shocking. But like Jacob was touching on, like Leicester have given teams a tough time, like Chelsea, that with that draw. Arsenal in the away leg, it was just 1-0. But yeah, I think the fact that Arsenal are on such a high, and that the fact that Leicester are struggling so much away from home, it's surely going to be an Arsenal win. I mean, the last time that Leicester won away from home was January 2024. So yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one for the Foxes, I'd say.
Yeah, over a year ago. I think that might have even been their sort of new manager bounce as well, sort of when they had an interim takeover last season. So yeah, well, that's pretty conclusive. Let's move on to the weekend's games, starting with the first game on Saturday. Two Uniteds playing against each other, West Ham hosting Manchester. This fixture last season, I should say, it was 1-1 in this game. Williams opening the scoring before Asseyi equalised. The only time that West Ham have ever beaten Man U was actually the first time that they met in the WSL, and that was back in 2019. So it's been a sort of a happy hunting ground for Man United in recent years. They've got, obviously, Elizabeth Turland. She's got the joint most with Mead and a couple of others goal involvements in the WSL, but Shakira Martinez is very much player in form. I saw over the international break, she got the accolade of Player of the Month for March in the WSL. Very well deserved. She's had 5 goals already since she joined at Christmas, or in January, I should say. And West Ham have been quite good at home. They've actually got the best record outside of the top 4. Obviously, we know there's a bit of a gulf between the top 4 and everyone else, but they've got the same amount of goals for at home as Man United have away this season. So 15 goals for Man United away from home and 15 for West Ham at home. So there's goals in this game, and I'm interested to see, well, really how many each side are going to get. I can't see this one being a 0-0, but in terms of, which is surprising because Man United are so good defensively, but I think West Ham have actually got quite a good shout in this game. Jacob, how do you think sort of West Ham are going to be able to fare in this one against a pretty good Man United defence?
I'm really looking forward to this game. I think out of all the weekend's games, this is probably the one that I'd say is the hardest to call, mainly because both teams are in good form going into it. United, obviously, as you mentioned before, they're coming off the back of a big FA Cup semi-final win against City. Seeing both Celine Bizet and Grace Clinton score was slightly bittersweet for me as a Tottenham fan. Bizet's goal especially was brilliant as she curled it into the corner. And in the WSL, they've been on great form, United, as well. They've won 9 of their last 10 games. Their only loss was that 3-1 loss against Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. And as we know, their defence has been incredible this season. They've kept 7 clean sheets in their last 10 games. I think it's something like 11 or 12 clean sheets maybe across the season. However, I wouldn't write off West Ham. As you said, they've been on really good form. In their last 7, they've won 3, drawn 2 and lost 2. But that doesn't tell you the whole picture, because if you look at their 3 games that they've played against the top sides, they've drawn to both Chelsea and City, which is no mean feat this season, and have given them both good games. And then one of their losses in that period was their 4-3 loss against Arsenal, and they were 3-1 up at one point in that game. So they've really given the top teams a good run, and I expect them to really challenge United, especially at home. Sam, as you mentioned before, Shakira Martinez has been on brilliant form. I've got a Twitter thread that will be coming out throughout the course of this week about various strikers in the WSL, and Shakira Martinez and Elizabeth Turland are 2 that I've focused on. Martinez especially, as you said, 5 WSL goals in 8 games, and that's from 2.7 XG. So she's overperformed her XG by 2.3, which is very impressive. And she also sits 3rd in the WSL at the moment for goals per 90. I think if you look at West Ham, it's very interesting to see the picture. Going into the winter break, they were sat 10th, only 3 points above relegation, and they now sit 7th, with their last 3 games of the season being against all of the bottom 3. So there's some serious chance of West Ham picking some momentum, and I wouldn't be that surprised to see them finish as high as 5th, potentially, going at the end of the season.
Yeah, which is crazy. And I still feel bad every week when I sort of have this conversation about where West Ham might finish. And I can see Tom already laughing, and Izzy, that I did predict them to go down at the start of the season. But I'm happy to be proved wrong, because they've been fantastic actually this year. Although not to take anything away from Manchester United as well, because I think they have also performed better than certainly I and I think a lot of people expected them to. I put them down for a relatively comfortable 4th. I thought there was going to be top 3, then a bit of a gap, 4th, then a bit more of a gap, then 5th downwards. But yeah, Tom, Man United have been really, really good this season, especially their defence, especially Fallon Tullis-Joyce. I've been really impressed with them. How about you?
Yeah, so impressed. I've got a very funny image in my head of both head coach Skinners with a picture of you on the dartboard in the dressing room, motivating the players to come out and perform. Prove him wrong. Prove Sam Biccarino wrong. I've been really impressed with United. It's hard not to be. I mean, 3 FA Cup finals. You said at the start of the show, 3 FA Cup finals in a row. I think they've really excelled is in defence as well. They've been so solid, and that was kind of the key to them doing so well a couple of seasons ago. How well they were performed in defence. I think Jacob again kind of touched on it there about Shakira Martinez. I'm really excited to see this battle between Shakira Martinez and this really exciting West Ham attack against that really good United defence. Like, how's Myla Tissier going to manage where Millie Bright, Steph Catley have struggled? It's going to be really interesting. I feel like this is if you're thinking about, obviously at West Ham, the only teams to have beaten West Ham at the Chigwell Construction Stadium this season in the league are Arsenal and Chelsea. And, you're thinking about, are United a part of that group that can go to these difficult places where kind of separates the challengers from the pretenders, a place like the Chigwell Construction Stadium? If you want to be up in that top tier of teams, you have to win these games that other teams really struggle in. So it's going to be really interesting. I think it's really important for United, because they've obviously we've talked about it before, but they've got these huge 3 games coming up against the rest of the top 4. So this is their last match where they're really expected to win. I think if they get 3 points here, then you can go into that City game looking for a draw, if you're Man United and you're hopeful, I mean, they probably will go for more than a draw after the way they played on the weekend. But yeah, I think from a West Ham perspective, I feel a little bit for them. I think they played really well against Chelsea in the second half, especially the last 20 minutes of the second half. And that kind of performance, it gives you so much momentum. But by the time they come around to this game, they won't have played a match in 3 weeks. And I just feel like that's really difficult for a team to deal with, I think. So I wonder if that might play a part at all here in how this shapes up for better or worse. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting one. I completely agree that it's the game of the weekend, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point as well. I hadn't actually thought that much about West Ham not playing for that long. And obviously Man United have had a pretty competitive fixture this weekend, which they've performed really well in. Pardon me. So yeah, I think that's going to be really important. And I think in terms of the top three race, this is really important for Man United because they have, like we've already said, probably the three, other than them, best teams in the league. And then probably the hardest fixture from that remaining 8 teams would be West Ham away at the moment. So it's really one they need to win, and Man City will be praying that West Ham manage to get something out of it. Izzy, how do you sort of see the rest of Man United season going? Because obviously they've got 4 really difficult games now, and Man City, although they're 7 points behind, have a bit of an easier running. Do you think Man United can still sort of hold on to that top 3 place?
I think before this weekend, I would have said that the top 3 was perhaps in doubt, but now having watched them against City, I think City are clearly in a bit of an injury crisis, and just seeing the way they played against United. I mean, United just had so much flair. They were just loving it out there, and they're really, it's not just their form that's great, but actually they're really kind of enjoying playing with each other, and you can really see that. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they cause some upsets. I think I agree with everyone else. I think this will be a really interesting game against West Ham. I think United will clinch it, but I don't think it's going to be a huge win because West Ham, similarly, especially at home, are one of those teams as well when they find their form and they really enjoy playing. But yeah, I think if United win this weekend, I would put a lot of money on them staying in the top 3. I just think City have lost a bit of momentum, and I do think that, that could cost them in the race.
Yeah, I think City need more points than United this weekend to really still be in the race. I think the game that they've got in a few weeks' time against each other is going to be really telling. I thought it was really nice to see this weekend as well that at a time where the Manchester United men's team aren't really very confident with their goalkeepers. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Onana and Bayindir. It was really nice to see a former keeper, David De Gea, commented on social media. I think he did it on Twitter and on Instagram, talking about, well, giving emojis or speaking about how fantastic Valentine's Joyce was this weekend and commenting on her double save. I thought that was quite a nice moment for, well, at least for the women's team. Probably a bit of a one in the teeth for the men's team, but as a club, it's still
What
nice.
week she's had, making her US debut as well.
Yeah, and she will be absolutely over the moon. She'll be in really good confidence now as well because of that. I think you can kind of see that at the weekend. She's had a few, not too major, but she's had a few mistakes throughout the season. But right now she looks like a player confident and in form. And you saw the way that she celebrated that double save. You tell that she knows that she's good as well now that she's got that call up, and I don't know if she's necessarily got the number 1 shirt for USA yet because she's got some competition, but she's definitely at least in the conversation. Let's move on to the other game on Saturdays. This one's kicking off half an hour later at 12:30. It's Brighton against Liverpool. And if there were more places for Champions League or anything, maybe, the sort of equivalent of Europa League or whatever it is going to be called that's coming up, this one might be a bit more interesting. But for the sake of where people are going to finish in the table, come the end of the season, this one could mean quite a lot because it's 5th against 6th, 22 points so far against 21. It's Brighton against Liverpool. This fixture last season was a 1-0 win for Liverpool, so away at Brighton. Kerry Holland being the definitely the person to talk about because she A, scored the goal and B, got sent off, obviously after the goal. So she was really the decider throughout the match. I'm quite interested to see how this game goes. And to be honest, I don't really know how it's going to go. Liverpool have quite enjoyed playing Brighton. They've won the last 4 times they've met. But Brighton are doing really well, especially at home. Their only loss at home this season was against Man City. And they've been scoring 2 goals a game, which, other than the top 4, is the most in the league. And obviously, they've got a little loanee that's had a pretty decent international break as well. Tom, as we go into this game, how do you think both teams are going to be looking at it? Because I know there's not necessarily millions of pounds per place in the league, but it will make quite a big big difference come the end of the season as to where these two teams finish, and potentially whether one will finish inside the top half.
Yeah, I think you can't discount how much these professionals would want to be finishing fifth and not, because it's so tight in that part of the table. Either one of these teams could finish fifth, or they could finish eighth or ninth. That's how close those positions are. And this is like, I think Liverpool are 1 point behind Brighton at the moment. So, this could make all the difference in terms of, you're looking back on a season finishing fifth. I think it means something to them. And I think, Nikita Paris loves playing against Liverpool as well. Like, she takes a special enjoyment. I remember when she scored, I think it was an equaliser at the time in the reverse fixture, and she was loving it, absolutely loving it, as you would. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, I'd be intrigued to see how Daria Vidosic uses Michelle Adjemang as well. Like, obviously, she had such a good international window. She'll be on a huge, huge high. Is he going to play her over Paris, given that Paris had a little bit of a disappointing international break? Or maybe that's looking too much into it. Maybe Adjemang will be used off the bench, but I'd be interested to see that. Obviously, I was at Kingsmeadow on the weekend covering the Liverpool's FA Cup loss. I thought they were really impressive, and it was kind of like really the opposite of their performance against Aston Villa. They really gave Chelsea a tough time, and when they took the lead, they really looked like they might make it too. And I think what would concern me a little bit about Liverpool is the fact that they conceded late on in both halves, and that might just suggest something to think about, really, when you're traveling away to these really difficult places to go, like Kingsmeadow or like Crawley. Is those, when you've been working so hard for 45 minutes at the end of that half, keeping switched on is going to be so vital. And what's going to be vital, even more important, is having someone like Olivia Smith in your team. Like Amber Whiteley spoke about her after the game, and I thought I'd just take this quote out and read it, because it just summed up how well she played on the weekend against the champions. She said, "She's got so much talent, and I've said this so many times before, but there's still so much more to come from her. She gives you so much going forward. The way she took her opportunity was brilliant, but it's what she does going back to defend our goal that is just as important for me. So she's so good in the duel and makes it difficult to break us down. So that girl's got it all, but she's going to get better." I thought I couldn't put it better myself, really, Amber, on that one.
Yeah, I really like Olivia Smith as a player. I think she's one that this is going to sound bad, not in that many ways, but she does remind me a little bit of Messi in the fact that she just gets taken down all the time, and people know they can't keep up with her. People know they're going to get out dribbled. So rather than trying to tackle her and get the ball is a bonus. If they stop her moving, that's what they're looking for. And I think when she first moved to Liverpool, and sort of, I don't know how much she was used to that at Sporting beforehand. I didn't ever see her play, but I know at Liverpool, especially in the first half of the season, she was getting quite rattled at that and was picking up some yellow cards that were almost in retaliation. Whereas I think in the last few weeks, especially, she's started to be a bit more level-headed with it and isn't quite reacting as badly. And actually, she's putting in some like even better performances, maybe because of that. Something has changed in her mindset. I don't know why, I don't know what it is, but something is going really well for her. And she loves scoring the first goal in a game as well. 5 of her 6 goals this season have been openers in a game, although Nikita Paris is the same. All 5 of her goals have been the opening goal in the game. Jacob, it does kind of look like, well, if you look at those numbers, it's probably going to be Paris or Smith that are going to be scoring first in this game. Do you think those two are going to be like the deciders of the game, or do you think there's going to be sort of other players that are going to step up?
I think it's hard to see past either Nikita Paris or Olivia Smith, but as we mentioned before, especially for Brighton, obviously Fran Kirby's had a very good season, so you could expect her to pop up with some goal contributions. And then also, as we said, Michelle Adjemang off the back of such a good performance for England. It's interesting to note that she's her minutes have been very much managed this season. She's made 14 appearances for Brighton, but all of them have been off the bench. And I think she'd only accumulated something like 200 and something minutes, which is only like 4 sets of 90 minutes across the whole season. And as I said, all from the bench. So maybe she'll make the impact off the bench and carry on her form. It seems like every week we say that Brighton are in fifth, and despite their not so good form post Christmas, really. So maybe this could be the weekend that Liverpool knock Brighton off that fifth spot. Both teams aren't in the best of form. Obviously, Liverpool, after sacking Mark Beard, were on a good run. They'd beaten Arsenal in the FA Cup. They'd had that really impressive win against United, and they'd beaten Palace in the league. But then they've had a couple of disappointing results, notably that loss to Villa in the league. So I'm not sure if I see Liverpool kind of continuing. I'm not sure if I see Liverpool picking up on that form. Whereas Brighton, they've only got one win in their last 10 WSL games, and sadly that was against Spurs. So yeah, Brighton not on the best of form either. They've lost their last 2 in the WSL. So despite them being 5th and 6th in the table, it's a battle against 2 teams who, maybe aren't in the best of form.
Yeah, I think if you looked at I haven't got this to hand or anything, but I think if you looked at the league table sort of since Christmas, I think these 2 teams would probably be pretty low down. If the league had started at Christmas, you'd be saying this would probably be one of the more of a relegation scrap. Then let's see who's going to finish in the top half. Izzy, I'm going to ask you to put your neck on the line and say, what do you think the score is going to be in this game?
Score? Oh gosh. I think it will be a Brighton win. And I say that just because it's at home. And I think if Liverpool can score early and score twice, then it will stay in Liverpool's hands. But I think Brighton just have a tendency to kind of bring on someone like Michelle Adjuman and kind of clinch it at the last minute. So I'm going to say, and I'm so bad at this, but I'm going to say 2-1 to Brighton. But yeah, I think like back to the point about 5th and 6th not being consequential, I think it's actually like a huge statement for both managers ahead of next season. I mean, like where they finish in the table, it's new managers, although some newer than others for both teams. And obviously Brighton have had a really unexpectedly good season on the whole. And I do think it will be they'll both want to make that statement ahead of next season that they're actually pushing the top 4. I do think it's going to be a really interesting game, actually. My sense is just maybe Liverpool might actually just be a bit downtrodden and kind of tired after that. You could see how hot that game as well was at Kingsmeadow. I'm sure, Tom, you knew if you were there. I was looking at it thinking, God, they all must be just absolutely knackered. And I think when you're in that kind of place and then you go somewhere like Crawley where the fans are screaming, I think that could play in Brighton's favour. So that will be probably not what happens now I've said it, but that's what I'm saying.
I think this would be one that, I was a bit cruel there, just asking you to, without warning, just to give me.
Fine, don't worry.
I think looking at this game, I think whichever the home team was, I'd probably go for a 2-1 home win, regardless, because I think the home form, with it being such a big travel distance as well, I think the home crowd could be a game changer here because the teams are kind of similar in level and similar in form. They've both got players that on their day can make it, and it's just, are they going to have their day on Saturday or not? And obviously we don't know that. We're not inside. The players themselves don't know if they're going to be like that come Saturday. We have to wait and see. Let's move on to Sunday, because there are 2 games on Sunday as well. We'll start off with Man City Everton. This one's at 1:00. Everton won the last time these 2 teams met, 2-1. It was the start of a really good run for Everton. And I remember before this game, when we recorded the pod, I was saying that it was going to be such an easy win for Man City. They've won the last 25 meetings between Everton and Man City. And obviously, Everton decided that it wasn't going to be 26. They were going to win 2-1. And it was, Yeah, I think at the time, I think it was the last match before Christmas, and sort of thought it was a bit of a one-off result, but Everton came out swinging after, and it really was, like I said, the start of a really good run. In terms of, we obviously spoke a bit about the Manchester United side of it, getting into the top three, but City, I think, are going to need to win every game now for the rest of the season to get into the top three. They are with 4 games left to go, they're in a 7-point deficit to Man United. But other than playing Man United, they've got Everton, Leicester, and Palace to play, which I feel like isn't a bad mix. You know, if you're going to give 3 random teams in the league that you're going to have to play before the end of the season, you would be pretty happy if they came out. So yeah, I think that if Man City drop any points in this game, Man United can pretty much start booking flights. They won't know who they're playing yet, but start thinking about the next season and probably start getting some players in that want to play Champions League football. Jacob, what do you think sort of Man City season is going to look like as it comes into the last few games?
Well, we've seen a Man City crumble in the last couple of weeks. Their season has almost disintegrated in front of them with the Subway Cup final loss against Chelsea, the Champions League quarter-final loss over on aggregate against Chelsea, and the FA Cup semi-final last weekend against United, which leaves them with the league to play. So yeah, really disappointing couple of weeks on City's side. A win here would put them obviously in a good position, and with United playing West Ham, there's a potential, as I said before, that West Ham could get some points off United, which could start to close the gap. I think it's really hard to see City catch United. But yeah, the only saving grace for City, I guess, is that United still have all three of the top 4 left to play. They've got to play Chelsea, Arsenal, and City. So there's an opportunity for United to drop points and then City to capitalise on that. However, as you said before, Everton beat City in the reverse fixture. Hope and Hayashi with the goals. And Everton have been in good form recently. They've won 3 and lost 3 of their last 6. But again, maybe that doesn't tell the whole story, because 3 of those 3 losses all came against the top 3, and their 3 wins came against Leicester, Villa, and Palace. And I feel like when you're kind of in the middle, I feel like when you're in mid-table, the important games are when you play the teams around you, and if you can beat the teams around you, then that really puts you in pole position to kind of finish as high as in the table as possible. So maybe it can be difficult. It could be difficult for Everton to get something out of this game, especially considering they're away. But they do have games left in the season that they could still win against maybe the lower sides. But yeah, from Everton's point of view, I'd look out for Kelly Gago, especially, who's got 4 goals and 1 assist in her last 6 games. And obviously Hayashi and Hongard have also been in good form. So yeah, I think it'll be a close game, but I'll go for a City win.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the same as you. Hanoka Hayashi is definitely one to look out for. I think off the top of my head, she has sort of the highest sort of goals minus XG this season. So her XG over performance, because she scored, I think, 4 or 5 from something like less than 1 XG. So it's something absolutely ridiculous that a player might score 1 or 2 of these type of goals throughout a season, but it seems to be that that's all she does. I think something that might sort of trouble Everton a little bit is that if Man City can make a good fast start, Everton aren't really going to be able to live with that. I was looking at some of the sort of when Everton score this season. So they've scored 18 goals across all their matches in the league. Only 2 of them have come in the first half an hour. So they don't tend to get out of the blocks. I don't know if that's on purpose. I don't know if they're just slow starters or what. But I do think Manchester City, even with a bit of with a few injury doubts, well, not just doubts necessarily, a few people ruled out as well, I do think they're going to have enough to get past Everton. And Everton are going to be staying in the bottom half of the league, so I can still keep calling Courtney Brosnan the best goalkeeper in the bottom half. Tom, I can see you smiled as soon as I mentioned Courtney Brosnan. How do you think this game's going to go?
Yeah, Courtney Brosnan, what a keeper. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's obviously be interesting to see whether Mary Fowler's available. I think that could be really important for this game. I think if Mary Fowler's in the side, then that really gives City a lot more attacking potency. think it's going to be tough. They're going to really need to raise themselves after a demoralising loss at home at the Joey Stadium to United. That would have felt really tough, I think. And I think they just need a couple of their players to step up, the ones that are fit. I mean, I was doing a bit of research before this pod, and I noticed that Jess Park is currently sitting 12th in the City squad for goal creating actions, and that's one place behind Chloe Kelly, and that's Chloe Kelly purely for City in the league this season, which is a telling stat, I think, to be honest. I think maybe, obviously, City's season has really fallen apart. But I was when I was watching the United City game on Sunday, I thought I'd just make a Manchester City injured 11, just to see what it would look like if they came up against each other, and it is eye-watering. So I'm going with Shaw up front, Hemp on the wing, Fagino on the other wing, Miedema attacking midfield, Laura Blinkilder-Brown and Rord. So, I mean, you could say that's their first team, those players. And then Shimizu at right back, Rebecca Knack centre back, Alex Greenwood centre back, Taro Hanlon left back. And I don't think they have a goalkeeper injured at the moment, so I just put Moonbeam in there. Sure, could do a job if required. But yeah, I think that really does tell the story. And I think what's telling for City is even if they win all the rest of their games this season, it's out of their hands still. They still might not make the Champions League. And yeah, I think, I agree. It's going to be really tough for them. But I think they might have enough. I think Nick Cushing might be able to rally the troops for this one. But yeah, I think it's going to be important to have Fowler back for this game. I think that'll be make a big difference to them.
Yeah, I think Fowler is someone that I'm praying is going to be starting. 'Cause obviously, there's a bit of a way to go till the weekend. We're not going to know, but the fantasy deadline is tomorrow, which I'm really annoyed at. Stupid Arsenal for putting their game early. But because I've got to take Miedema out, and I'm probably going to put Fowler in. It's just a risk, and I'm hoping she plays. But yeah, Izzy, I would blame you for that, but it's not really in your control, is it?
Yeah, it's absolutely nothing to do with me, I promise.
No, right, we'll leave it on that note. Let's move on to the Spurs Villa game. I'm going to go to Jacob first on this one as the Spurs fan, because this game on Sunday, 2:00, Spurs have obviously not been in the best of form, but neither have Villa. Until the last game in sort of the last game week, these two sides had the worst form in the league. They both lost their last 5 games. Spurs are still winless in 6 and are the only team to have not won a game in their last 3. Also, this fixture last season was a Villa win away at Spurs. Adriana Leon and Jordan Nobbs getting the goals. Amy James-Turner getting 1 for Spurs. Although when they last met at Spurs, that was back in the Subway Cup back in November with Evelina Simonon scoring the only goal of the game. So the last time that Villa went to Spurs, it was a Spurs win. Other than that, it's not looking too good for Spurs at the moment. But you're perfectly allowed to put your biased hat on. And how do you think this game's going to go?
It's been such a difficult second half of the season for us. We obviously the start of our bad run of results came, I think it was at the start of February when we played United, Arsenal and City in a row, and we obviously lost all of them. And you can forgive that because you're playing top teams, and then we kind of started a run where we were playing West Ham, Leicester and Brighton, and you go, okay, you're playing teams around you here, we can pick up some points here. And yeah, there were some really disappointing results there. We obviously lost to West Ham and Brighton relatively narrowly, and then picked up a point against Leicester. And you can kind of, especially in the last couple of games, partially put it down to Beth England's absence. I mean, when I've been on the pod, I've spoken before about Beth England's influence, and it's true, and it's no secret. I mean, when Drew Spence scored against Leicester, Drew Spence became only the second player other than Beth England to have scored more than 1 goal for Spurs. Only Spence and Evelina Simonon have scored more than 1 goal other than Beth England for Spurs, which just shows our lack of goal-scoring threat. I honestly feel so bad for Martha Thomas, who I've just been waiting for her to score her first WSL goal of the season. She is the biggest XG underachiever in the WSL. She's got 0 goals from 4.2 XG, and the last couple of games she's been so desperately unlucky. And just when your luck's not in, your luck's not in. She had a shot where she was clean through on goal in the Leicester game, which and there was an unbelievable save, and it was a 0.38 xg chance. And then similarly in the West Ham game, she hit the post. It was a really well worked chance. Ella Morris down the right crossed it in, and then Martha Thomas hit the post, and that was a 0.39 xg chance. So just in from those two chances, that's like 0.667. That's 0.77 xg chance created, and she hasn't scored. So she's been desperately unlucky. But I feel like if there's any game that we can win and that looks winnable on paper, it's this one. Before Villa's win against Liverpool, before the break, they'd gone on a 6-match unbeaten. Sorry, they've gone on a 6-match loss streak. So maybe we're playing Villa at a bad time off the back of their win against Liverpool. But I mean, Spurs have had their goal scoring problems. Villa have also had their goal scoring problems, scoring 3 goals in their last 6. So I see it being quite a relatively low scoring match. Potentially a 2-1 win to Spurs, I'd go, or 1-0. Although we don't keep clean sheets, so I'll go with a 2-1 win.
Yeah, I think I'd probably just about go for a Spurs win, but I do think it's going to be close. I think if there is going to be a winner in this game, there's only going to be 1 goal in it. I think it might be quite late on as well. Similarly to, as I mentioned before, I was looking at sort of when these teams score, and a third or over a third of the goals that these two teams have scored in the WSL this season have come in the last 15 minutes. So they like to try and win a game late on, basically, and they do go all the way until the end. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and definitely not one to leave early, I think, this game. The other thing I kind of wanted to highlight when looking at this game is that I think Villa are also struggling a little bit to have a lot of goal scorers. Their second top scorer in the league this year is Adriana Leon, and she left in January to go to the NWSL. So they also haven't got a lot of goal scorers. I think off the top of my head, Jordan Nobbs has had the most shots in the league this year without scoring. I think it's over 20. So they're trying. They're putting in some good performances as well. They've had a few times this season where on XG, they've actually been in a game and they should have drawn it or they should have won it and just haven't. But Spurs are kind of the same. And yeah, I agree on Martha Thomas as well. I think she is a really good player, and she's just having one of those seasons that's just not great. I do expect that she's going to come back next year and sort of be back stronger and be back fighting. But yeah, do you know what? I very nearly put her in my fantasy team at the start of the season. But she's quite expensive, isn't she? Is she over 7 million?
Yeah, she was at the beginning of this season because, she did so well last season. So, and she had quite high ownership come the end of last season. So obviously, she went into this season sort of, I think quite a lot of people were putting her in until they swiftly transferred her out again, and I don't think anyone's heard from her since, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it was something like 7 goals in the first 9 games, something along those lines. It was definitely 7 goals early on last season. I was thinking this is a great form. It was while Beth England was out injured as well, and it's sort of like, what's going to happen when Beth England comes back? She's obviously so good. How is she going to fit alongside? Are they going to play one or the other? Obviously, this season they've gone with Beth England, and that's gone really well. But yeah, without her, maybe not quite so much. I've sort of said that I think this is going to be maybe a 1 goal in it kind of game. Izzy, how do you think this is going to go? Do you think same as me? Do you think it's going to be close, or do you think one of these teams might run away with it?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't. Sounds very bad, but I don't see it being the most exciting game. And that's not just because Spurs are playing Jacob. No, I think, if I was to putting a fantasy spin on it, I wouldn't put any players in from either of the two teams, because I just think it's not going to be one of those games where one side scores more than the other. And I also do think both sides will score. So I don't think there's really any clean sheets in it either. If I had to say, I'm leaning towards Villa just because I think they're clearly doing a lot of work and they're very desperate to prove that their whole season hasn't been like a massive flop. And they showed some sparks in that game just before the international break, obviously with Kirsty Hansen coming on and scoring that goal. So I think if I had to say, I'd say maybe 1-0 to Villa or 2-1. But yeah, probably something along those lines. I don't think it's going to be a huge scoreline.
Yeah, you just wait now. This is going to be 5-3 or something that we're all going to look.
No, I'm blessing all the Villa and Spurs fans with my karma.
Well, some of the numbers might say that there is going to be a winner in this game because Spurs haven't actually drawn a home game this season. There's always been at least a goal either side. Tom, how do you think this is going to go? Do you think it's going to be kind of like, as you said, the worst game of the weekend, or are you a bit more hopeful?
I hope not. I think it's going to be an interesting one. I was looking at some of the stats before this game, and I think you mentioned it on a pod recently, Sam, about Sabrina D'Angelo, that you didn't really feel like she was good enough at the moment. And the stats really tell that story. I mean, her post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed is minus 6.6 goals, which is not good, really. And it tells us it's the worst in the league. And I think that tells a story as well. Like when you're trying to stay in a game, you need your goalkeeper to make that save that they shouldn't be making, or make that save that they should be making. And I don't think she's doing that at the moment. I think both these teams have been playing better, really. I think Villa, Missy Beaukern's been really good for them, I think, in the last few games. And like Izzy said, Kirsty Hansen really changed the dynamic of that Liverpool game. It's her direct running that's really led to Villa winning the game when she came off the bench. So, yeah, I think they're kind of learning how to play the system under Natalia Arroyo. I can see a lot of changes for Villa in the summer, really. I think they might overhaul the squad for her, for Arroyo, sorry. But I think similarly with Tottenham, their last two games, they've been much better as well. I think that defeat to West Ham, I thought they actually played quite well. Certainly were unlucky to be one goal down. They were certainly against the run of play when West Ham took the lead. And then, once you're behind at West Ham, it's so difficult to change that momentum. I think they hit the woodwork twice in that game as well. So, and hit the woodwork again against Leicester. Jacob, I really feel for you. Your nerves must just be through the roof at this. But I think both these teams are hopefully on an upward trajectory. So I hope it's going to be a good game. I think probably marginally would make Spurs favourites, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if this was a 1-1 draw. I think that'd be my prediction.
Yeah, I think, well, we've all basically said it's just going to be a really close game. And I do really agree with the point, actually, that I think Villa might have a bit of an overhaul this summer. That's something I hadn't really considered too much. But in terms of, players, I don't think there's many players that they'll definitely keep. I think people like Lucy Parker, Anna Patton, Kirsty Hansen, they'll be players that Arroyo seems to really like and are playing quite well. But and Rachel Daly, obviously. But there's not a starting 11. There's not even maybe 9 or 10 players that you would say, oh yeah, they're gonna be in the team next year still. I think it might be.
I'm not even. This might be a ridiculously controversial shout, but I feel like Rachel Daly isn't a Natalia Arroyo type player. I actually could see her going in the summer, and I think that could be a bit of a Natalia Arroyo, Jonas Eidevall meet of a moment if that happened. But we'll see. We'll see anyway.
I think that Rachel Daly's very good because she's very good at football, basically. Not just as a striker, she's just very good at football. She can sort of perform in any kind of team, but I think she's probably more valuable to another team than Natalia Arroyo will value her. So yeah, I agree that I wouldn't be surprised to see her move on. Where she'd go, I don't know. I imagine that there will be other, especially WSL clubs, that will want her.
Yeah, Tottenham even. Who says? Do you say no, Jacob?
No, I wouldn't.
England daily strike force up front could be deadly. Spurs might even get in the top half, Jacob. Let's move on to that final game this week. Another rearranged game. This one is Chelsea against Crystal Palace. I don't really want to use the term, but I will do. It's a London derby. This one's rearranged because Barcelona are hosting Chelsea on Sunday. This one, I don't think there's going to be too much to say about it because basically every single stat you can find on it goes in Chelsea's favour. It is first in the league against bottom in the league. These teams have played 5 times before. Chelsea have won all 5 with an aggregate score of 16-0. The only sort of saving grace for Palace on that is that both of the matches that have been at Chelsea were 1-0. But then again, the last time these two teams played was earlier this season, the WSL, and Chelsea won 7-0 away at Palace. Chelsea have scored more goals in the last 15 minutes of matches than Palace have in all games this season. Palace has failed to score in half of their matches. And they're actually the only team that haven't scored in their last 2 games. So, yeah, before I just go, let's write it off, can anyone see anything other than just a whitewash 4-0 Chelsea win coming? Or do we think there might be some other saving grace to this?
I think that, Crystal Palace showed when they played in the FA Cup recently, one of Leif Schmered's first games in charge against Chelsea in that quarter-final, that they could keep the score down. How much they looked like they could actually threaten at the other end is hard to say. And I think a lot of the key players in their squad are on loan from Chelsea as well, which is a real pain for them because they won't have Lexi Potter, they won't have Anik Nguyen either, for this one, which is, you're taking 2 parts of the spine out of that side. And you get the feeling that probably the most important game for them in this game week is that Villa versus Spurs one, because if Villa beat Spurs, it's hard to see Palace being able to stay up, because I'd love to say that I have a bit of hope for them in this one, but the only glimmer would be that Chelsea are playing either side of this game. They're playing Barcelona, the European champions. They're traveling to Barcelona. They'll be coming back from Barcelona. They actually had a decision to make where they wanted to play this game obviously when Arsenal have decided to play Leicester or the week after. Interestingly, they chose to play it in between the 2 Barcelona games, which, I don't know if you could try and spin that in the dressing room as like they think they can beat us, like motivational type thing. It's interesting with Leif Smurd, like you alluded to, since he took over, obviously it seems like they've been performing better, but they've actually only scored in 1 game that he's been in charge, and that was their 3-1 win against Villa. And that he's been in charge for 5 games. They haven't scored in the other games. But they had scored in 5 of their last 6 under Kaminsky, which, I think the performances have improved under Smurd, but that's probably something maybe he's sacrificed. That maybe tells a story that he's sacrificed quite a lot in attack to shore up the defence. I think, it's really hard to say, and I think it could really depend on how it goes in that first leg for Chelsea. If they have a difficult result against Barcelona in Barcelona, then maybe there's a glimmer of hope for Palace. But it's really tough to see Palace getting anything out of this game. But if you're looking at recent results at home for Chelsea at Kingsmeadow, last game they played at Kingsmeadow, they dropped their first points of the season at home. They obviously, Liverpool pushed them hard recently, and they even have their own example of pushing Chelsea for a long way in Kingsmeadow for that 1-0. So, I've tried my best there, Sam. I hope that was okay for the Palace fans listening.
You have tried your best. It's a commendable. I think even the most positive Palace fan is saying that as a commendable effort to say that Palace might do okay in this game. I think Palace's worst nightmare in this game is going to be seeing, I guess, the wrong result, you would say, probably for Palace, which is Chelsea just thrashing Barcelona on Sunday and not needing to rest too many players for the return leg. But I've played things like FIFA, Career Mode, and Football Manager for many years, and I've had this sort of situation. And I go for the idea of I'm just going to play a completely second string 11 in sort of the match in between that doesn't matter as much. Realistically, for Chelsea, this game, they could lose it and they're still going to win the WSL. I don't think that's Sonia Van Postel's style. I think she's still going to play a pretty strong team and probably still come out of this with, I guess, her reputation intact and hopefully Chelsea, well, for Chelsea's sake, keeping up their really good record in the WSL this season. I'm going to wrap it up there on the sort of actual matches coming up I was going to say this weekend, but I guess the week and a bit ahead, because I want to move on to the Fantasy WSL segment because I'm finding it quite hard this week because the deadline's really early compared to all the games. I do, although there's no double game week or anything like that, it's still making it quite hard for me to know who I definitely want to transfer in and out. I think I've got a good idea for one of my transfers, but I'm not 100% what to do on the second one. So I'm hoping Izzy's going to tell us all about what other people have done so I can nick those ideas.
Yeah, that's what I usually do, Sam. So, well, like I kind of alluded to earlier, there's definitely been a significant drop of all injured players. So actually the top 5 injured players that have been transferred out this week are Miedemar, Russo, Rord, Shaw, and Katrina Gorey as well. So yeah, I think there's a general drop of kind of what I would sort of consider mainstay fantasy WSL players that kind of usually stick it out for the whole season in people's teams. There's some usual suspects. It's interestingly actually to hear the stat about Jess Park because she is the 5th most transferred in player this week, and I assume that's to do with her England call up and getting minutes there, and perhaps the fact that Miedemar's out of the squad for City, but given her recent form for City, it's quite interesting that people have gone with her. I think it will be no surprise to anyone that Aggie Beaver-Jones is the most transferred in this week. I also transferred her in because I'm not original whatsoever. I think that's probably a good shout. Kirsten Kasperai, friend of Fantasy WSL, was also second most transferred in. Grace Clinton, Caldente. So, again, fairly standard names. Shakira Martinez actually has made the top 10 this week for maybe the first time in the season. So clearly other people have started paying attention, which is really nice. I think the one thing I will say for this week is there could be, given we've only got a few weeks left and there's so many people out injured, it's a nice week for visionaries if people want to take that risk. I think, Everton players, West Ham players, I say this having not done it myself, but if you're brave and want to kind of target those people.
Is Martinez still a visionary, is he?
I'm pretty sure she is. She may not be next week, but
yeah, that's been sorted this week then.
Yeah, exactly. She's still only on 0.4%.
Oh wow!
So that could all change next week, but as far as she is this week, yeah, you're good. So I think that is actually a really good shout, and I'm deeply regretting not doing that myself. Now I've given this advice to everyone.
I'm definitely going to be checking out the video. I often, before I make my transfers, I look at not just on the app, but on the actual, because if you go on the like web page for Fantasy WSL, there's like the player list, and you can flick through visionaries there and see, rather than just looking at the player list, I can see across all the positions and stuff, which visionaries I might want to put in. And I do love to put a visionary in and risk it, which for some this season has paid off. I've sort of transferred Olivia Holt in at the right time. And I think I put Mikato in when she was still a visionary and stuff. I think Mary Mielda got me some points as well, so it's going well for me so far. Visionaries, hopefully more. But Listener, if you're listening, don't go for the visionaries because then I won't be able to. Because I want to get all the points. I want to keep my place in the top 200. That's my target for the rest of the season. But yeah, thank you, Izzy. It's good as ever to hear about the Fantasy WSL stuff. But we're going to go for I think what seems like the main reason all three of you are here. We're going to move on to Know Your Stat. So, listener, if you're new here, Know Your Stat is basically a game of categories. I'm going to give 3, well, maybe even 4 today. We'll get to that. But I'm going to give a category out. Izzy, Jacob, and Tom are going to take it in turns to name answers from that category. If you give a wrong answer or if you repeat an answer, you are out. Last one standing wins. We have 3 rounds today as normal, but as there's 3 of you today, if you win 1 each, we are going to go to a deciding round. I do have a 4th one, which is going to be ever so slightly bigger. There's more players in it. So hopefully that might give a bit more, or make it a bit harder to actually win. We'll see how we go, and just praying that it's not going to be a draw in the last round and you get all the answers, because otherwise I don't have anything else to go off then, and I can't make up one on the spot. The first round will go Jacob going first in the first round, then Izzy, then Tom. The first round is going to be about teams, not players. I know it's normally players, but this one is teams. So since the WSL started back in 2010, I would like you to tell me the 15 teams that have lost the most WSL games.
Aston Villa.
Aston Villa are a correct answer. They have lost 56. They are 9th.
Reading.
Yep. Reading have lost 63. They're 7th on the list.
West Ham.
West Ham are 5th.
Everton.
Everton are number 1. They are the only team that have lost over 100 games.
Birmingham City.
Birmingham City is 6th on the list. Good shout.
Bristol City.
Bristol City is number 2. They've lost 93.
Liverpool.
Yep. Liverpool are also 2nd, joint with Bristol on 93.
Brighton, maybe?
Brighton are 4th on the list, 79.
Tottenham.
Tottenham are 8th on 58.
I'm sorry, Jacob. You're catching strays. I was trying to say other teams.
I know, me too. I was like, I don't want to be the one.
Yeah,
I was about to lose, Jacob. Go on.
I feel like Izzy and Tom had Spurs written down first by the sound of that. You're doing well so far, though. You've got 9 out of the 15 teams.
I'm going to go with Man United.
Man United are 17th on the list. Is an incorrect answer for Jacob.
Oh no. Can't even remember who any of them are. Who have we not said? Oh no, I can't even remember who we've said now.
You have to give something. Don't make me time you out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, time me out. I have no idea who. I have no idea.
No guess from Izzy. So, Tom, if this is a correct answer, you win.
I'm going to go Yeovil Town.
Yeovil Town are the 15th team on the list.
What?
Okay.
Yeovil Town!
Yeovil Town, who I believe stopped being a club in 2020, did lose 33 WSL games, so do make the list. So Tom takes round 1. There were 4 teams that you didn't get. 5 teams that you didn't get. They were Arsenal, Chelsea, Doncaster Red Bells, Leicester, who I thought you might get, and Man City. They were 14th.
Oh
gosh, yeah. And United, that was so unlucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, United were...
I guess it's because they haven't been around for that long.
Yeah,
exactly. And once they were in the league, they also started doing quite well, so they weren't actually losing that many games pretty much as soon as they came up. I was intrigued to see if someone might go for someone like Notts County or Sunderland. But yeah, they would have been incorrect answers as well. But well done, Tom. Tom takes round 1. You're going to move on to round 2, so everyone's going to sort of move a space in the order. So Izzy's going to go first on this one, then Tom, then Jacob. This one, I would like you to name for me any player that has had at least 100 defensive actions in the WSL this season. So a defensive action could be a shot blocked, a pass blocked, a clearance, an interception, or a one tackle. So if you attempt to tackle but you don't win it, it doesn't count. So any player that's had over 100, there are 31 players to pick from. Izzy to go first.
Maya Letitia.
Yep, she is number 5 on the list.
Ashley Neville.
Ash Neville is number 1, 202.
Millie Bright.
Millie Bright is on 135. Good guess.
Lucy Bronze.
Lucy Bronze is 118. Bit lower down, but still well done.
Emily Fox.
Emily Fox is an incorrect answer.
No.
Tom out. She's had 74.
Katie McCabe.
Katie McCabe is an incorrect answer as well. So Izzy takes round 2.
Well done, Izzy.
Oh, that's horror.
God, I can't help but feel like I bottled that one.
I feel like I'm very surprised by those answers.
Katie McCabe's had 88 defensive actions this season so far.
I was about to say Leah Williamson, and then I was just like, just last second, I was like, would that be correct?
Was Leah Williamson an answer? Because that was going to be my next.
Leah Williamson would have been an incorrect answer.
Oh, okay, well, that makes us all feel better.
I'll name through the...
Yeah.
You know what? Considering you got 10 out of 15 on the last round, you got 4 out of 31 on that one between you.
We should have just been picking teams at the bottom end of the table, right? Is that like Amber Tiziak? Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I'll read out the
I'm
players.
gonna
Amber
kick myself
Tiziak
for
was
this
the
one.
number 2 player. She's the only other player other than Ash Neville that has had over 200. She's had 201. The other players you could have had were Lexi Potter, Amanda Nilden, Anna Patton, Anouk Denton, Azmita Ali, CJ Bott, Claire Hunt, Gabby George, Gemma Bonner, Guro Bergsvand, Heather Payne, Jade Riviere, Jenna Clark, Julie Thibault, Justin Van Havermate, Katrina Gorry, Lily Woodham, Megan Finnegan, Millie Turner, Molly Bartrip, Ruby Mace, Sarah Holmgard, Shalina Zadorsky, Sjerka Nusken, surprised me she was on the list, Sophie Howard, and Taylor Hines. So yeah, quite a few players from the bottom half.
You even had Sophie Howard on the pod and we didn't get it.
Sorry,
So Izzy takes round 2. So Jacob, if you win this one, then it's going to go to the deciding round. If not, maybe I'll keep it for next week's pod or something. So this one, Tom's going to go first, then Jacob, then Izzy. Now, we've mentioned a few times that there are multiple players that are leading the league on goal involvements, with 4 players that are on 13. I would like you to name for me, other than those 4 players, any player that's had at least 5 goal involvements this season. So there are 37 players on the list, but if you say one of the 4 players that have got 13, that counts as an incorrect answer as well.
Okay.
Any player that's had at least 5 but less than 13.
Shakira Martinez.
Correct, she has had 5. No assists so far. Jacob.
Grace Clinton.
Yeah, correct. She's had 7.
Vivasay.
Vivasay is on 11.
Nikita Paris.
Yep, she's got 9.
Beth England.
Beth England, of course, she is also on 9.
Mariona Caldente.
Yep, on 11. Correct answer.
Aggie Beaver Jones.
Yep, she has had 8. This feels like the most tense round of Know Your Stat I've ever done. Everyone's so like deep in thought between their answers. Go on, Jacob.
Fran Kirby.
Fran Kirby is correct. She's had 7.
Olivia Smith.
Yep, she's got 6.
Rachel Daly.
Rachel Daly is a correct answer. She's also got 6.
Celine Bizet.
Celine Bizet has 7, correct?
Joanna Ritting-Kanerich.
Yeah, she's got 8 after a fantastic start to the season at least.
Jess Park.
Jess Park might not have had many goal creating actions, but she's had 5 goal involvements, so she's just about on the list.
Lauren Hemp.
Lauren Hemp is on the list with 7.
Lauren James.
Not on the list. The first incorrect answer of the round. Lauren James has had 4 goal involvements this season.
No way.
So unfortunately, Izzy is out. But Tom and Jacob, it's between you two to see who wins now.
Viviana Miedemar.
Yep, she's had 8.
Guro Wrighton.
Guro Wrighton's on 7.
Aboa Fujino.
Alba Fugino is an incorrect answer. She's had 4 goal involvements this season. So, Jacob, if you get this answer correct, you've won the round and you've taken it to a tiebreaker.
I've got 2 names on my list, and I'm not sure either of them have it. I'm going to go Melvin Mallard.
Melvin Mallard has 5 goal involvements this season. Is the correct answer. Who was the other one you had?
Jill Roord.
Jill Roord was also a correct answer. She's got 7. So you'd have won it either way.
Well done, Jacob.
Well done, Jacob. So you've won 1 each. We're going to have to go to the tiebreaker. Before we do that, I'll read out the players that you could have had. And I think, although there are probably some players that you'll be surprised that aren't on the list, like the ones that you've said, there are a few on here that you'll be like, oh, yeah, of course. So you could have had Beth Mead, Caitlin Ford, Kat Macario, Ella Toon, Frida Marnham, Jill Roord, Katie McCabe, Katie Stengel, Katrina Gorry, Kelly Gago, Kiko Saker, Kim Little, Leah Galton, Myra Ramirez, Rachel McLaughlin. I was surprised to see her on there. She's had a few assists. Rico Ecke, Sandy Baltimore, Sarah Hongard, Sjurka Nusken, and Stina Blackstenius.
I love how I had like 5 of those in my head, and I just was like, ignore all intuition and say the wrong answer.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
It's tough though, because I think the 2 answers that you 2 gave for Gino and James, if I didn't have the list in front of me, I would have thought those were probably correct answers. I wouldn't really have thought much of it. But unfortunately, that does mean, well, for you 2 anyway, it's unfortunate, but very fortunate for Jacob. He takes the round and it is 1 apiece. So we'll go to a 4th round. Whoever wins this will win today's match. Now, I would like you to name me, outside of the top 4 teams, the 40 players that have had the most touches in the WSL this season. So outside of the top 4 teams, I will say if there is a player that has played for 2 teams, one is in the top 4 and one is outside the top 4, their touches for the team outside the top 4 do count. So, for example, Emma Watson, I'll tell you now, she's not on the list. Her, I can't remember what the numbers were now. I think it's something like 7 touches for Manchester United don't count, but her, I think it's about 20 touches for Everton do. But anyway, the 40 players with the most touches outside the top 4 is basically anyone with 699 or more touches. We're going to go Jacob to start, and then Izzy, and then Tom.
Molly Bartrip.
Yeah, Molly Bartrip, 1,251.
Ash Neville.
Ash Neville is, 1,100.
Anna Patton.
Anna Patton is a correct answer. She's on 1,300.
Claire Hunt.
Claire Hunt is on 877. Correct answer.
Taylor Hines.
Taylor Hines is also a correct answer. She's had just over 1,000.
Guro Bergsvand.
Guro Bergsvand is also correct. 1,362.
Sophie Howard.
Sophie Howard, just over 900.
I'm going to go Sarah Homeguard.
Yep, she is 8th on the list, just over 1,000.
Courtney Brosnan.
Courtney Brosnan is on the list, number 34 with 743.
Asmita Ale.
Yep, she is correct. Number 37 on the list, so just about.
Janice Kamen.
Janice Kamen is not a correct answer. She is one that, like I said before, if I didn't have the list in front of me, I probably would have guessed her. But no, she's had 545. Not too far off, but incorrect nonetheless, unfortunately.
Amber Tiziak.
Tom, you've given me a correct answer.
Don't do me like that, Sam.
Yeah. So it is basically sudden death at this point.
CJ Bott.
CJ Bott is a correct answer. She's number 28 on the list.
Jenna Clark.
Jenna Clark is correct. Number 35 on the list. There's still a few of the top 10 that you've not got.
Justine Van Havermaet.
Yep, she is just inside the top 20 with 843.
Katrina Gorry.
Katrina Gorry is 920. She's 13th.
Anouk Denton.
Anouk Denton has just over 800.
Kinga Shemik.
Kinga Shemik wins the round for Jacob. She's incorrect answer. Kinga Shemik is on 637, number 51 on the list.
Well done, Jacob.
What a comeback, Jacob.
Oof.
Yeah.
Very.
We did say.
You did say it.
Very kind of you, Jacob,
Well
to give Izzy and Tom a head start before winning the last 2 rounds.
He was luring us into a
Yeah.
false sense of security.
The long game, Jacob.
I was running out of players there. Did we miss like all the centre mids? Because we said so many defenders.
Yeah, I'll run you through the players that you could have had. You got quite a lot of them. I was impressed. I wasn't sure that round was going to go on for as long as it did. The players that you didn't get were Lexi Potter, Amanda Nilden, Claire Wheeler, Dan Turner, Drew Spence, Evelina Sumanen, Gemma Bonner, Grace Fisk, Hanoka Hayashi, Jordan Nobbs, I think. She was one of the players in the top 10. She was 6th. Yorlin Karabali, Julie Thibault, Katrin Vey, Lily Woodham, Lucy Parker, Maria Thoris-Dottir, Marie Herbinger, Megan Finnegan, Noel Moritz, Poppy Pattinson. She was the player with the most touches that you didn't get on 1,200. She was 4th on the list. Ruby Mace, Sabrina D'Angelo, Shalina Zadorsky, and Vicky Lasada. But very well done on that, because I purposely made quite a difficult last round. And I wasn't sure you were going to get that far into it. So well done. I think you would have, probably all 3 of you, done better than I would have done.
It's a lot of fun. 4 great rounds, Sam.
It is. I get really competitive. So
I feel like I need to revise. Like next time, I need to properly sit down.
I'm liking it. And you will probably not be surprised to hear that as a stat man, I have been over the months keeping track of who's won what and how many points and stuff, and I have got a little leaderboard. But yeah, Jacob gets his first match 1 on the leaderboard. There is still no one that has won 2 matches of it so far. But I believe all 3 of you are back on next week. So someone is going to have to be the first person to win 2 matches of Know Your Stat. We'll have to see who it is then. Listener, make sure you come back. But yeah, that is Know Your Stat for today. Well done, Jacob. But thank you all 3 of you for coming on the pod this week. And it's nice to have 4 people on. I haven't done this before, but it seemed to go all right. I think the software has sort of dealt with it. The Wi-Fi's kept up. Thank you all 3 of you for coming on. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Izzy. Thank you, Tom. Jacob, before we go as well, I just wanted to give you a little chance to plug your Twitter, because you mentioned the Twitter thread that's going to come out soon. Do you want to just remind everyone how they can follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, so follow me on X at Mighty Oroz. That's MIGHTYOROZ. As I said, I've got a thread coming out, just some visualizations and stats on Russo, Turland, Bunny Shaw, and Shakira Martinez. So yeah, stay tuned for that this week.
Yeah, make sure you follow Jacob and Izzy and Tom and Fantasy WSL and the Halfway Line. Keep listening to the Halfway Line pod as well. Especially go back and listen to last week's as well, because they were very complimentary about me and it was very nice. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jamie. But yeah, thank you very much, all 3 of you, for coming on. Thank you as well, listener, for tuning in to Decoding the WSL. As ever, if you enjoyed the episode, do make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can follow Decoding the WSL on Instagram, and obviously me at Stattorino on X, Instagram, as well as TikTok and Blue Sky as well. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you, everyone. And we will speak to you at the next one.